All right, everybody. So let's do this. Let me just see if I can do this. All right, we got it. All right, let's get right into this. Anybody who's watching this live, comment live, and anybody who's watching this on the replay, go ahead and comment replay. So what I'm doing right now is a little bit of a bonus live training, running through a training that I'm going to be uploading into the podcast. So if you can't catch it all now, you can catch some of it later. And it's just about meal timing priorities for a big transformation. So again, if you're watching this live, comment live, and if you're catching the replay, comment replay. So today's episode of the Tom the Trainer Fitness podcast is about meal timing priorities for a big transformation. And I've been a personal trainer and a coach since 2016, but I've also been training myself since I was 13, which means at the time of recording this episode, fitness has been a focus and training has been a focus in my life for almost 3 decades. And if that experience has taught me anything, it's that the hardest thing to figure out to have a big transformation is your diet because it's complicated. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and the internet, social media, it doesn't make it any simpler, right? There's fad diets everywhere, and every so-called expert says something different. So, in this episode of the podcast, I'm going to simplify things a bit for you by breaking down the factors that go into a good diet and how to properly prioritize them all. And I know that this is going to be super helpful because on my way to transforming over 300 clients to date, I've lost count how many times I've explained this to my clients. It's probably one of the most common questions that I get asked, which means if all my clients are wondering what the answers are, then you've got to be wondering as well. So let's dive into it. When you're looking at building the best diet for you to follow for a big transformation, there's a few priorities, in my opinion. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to list out the priorities and then I'm going to discuss their importance order. So, you've got calories, how much energy you consume in a day. You've got macros and micros, which is how you distribute those calories amongst protein, carb, and fats, as well as what vitamins and minerals are present within your food selections. Okay. And then you have meal timing. Meal timing is how frequently you're eating and the timing of your nutrition surrounding things like your workouts, your wake up, and your bedtime. Okay. Now, we also have supplements. Supplements, things like creatine, protein powders, protein bars, and anything that you'd buy in a supplement store are going to be a consideration. And there's a ginormous list of them, but spoiler alert, they should be the least important of your priorities. Okay. And then lastly, we have compliance. How well can you stick to your diet in the short term, but also and especially in the long term? Okay. So now that we know what the priorities of a good diet are, let's discuss their importance. Your first priority, 100%, should always be determining your calories. I don't care. I don't care if you're doing keto. I don't care if you're doing intermittent fasting, carnivore, or what it is. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot have a transformation if you don't have the right calories. So if you're looking at your priorities of your diet as a pyramid, the base that makes up the highest percentage of your success should always be calories. Okay. So the base of the pyramid priorities is always calories. And the second thing to focus on should be your macros and your micros. But most importantly, it should be your protein consumption. Okay. And if you think about it, like the most impressive transformations are done by losing as much fat as possible without losing, if not gaining, as much muscle as possible. A transformation is not about weight loss, it's about fat loss. So protein is crucial. And I think anywhere between 0.75 and 1 gram per pound is sufficient. But then you also have to understand that there's times where you might be able to push it higher than that, as well as lower than that, as well as while considering individuals, right? Individual situations. Um, so sometimes you can push it higher and sometimes you can push it lower, depending on like where people are at in their transformation, depending on how much body fat they have, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a good rule of thumb, 0.75 to 1 gram per pound. Okay. Now, after establishing protein, how you split up your carbs and your fats from there as it relates to fat loss usually doesn't seem to make much of a difference. Okay. As long as your protein is sufficient and your calories are in check, the distribution of carbohydrates and fats usually seems to just kind of wash themselves out as it relates to fat loss. But I'm not normally a big fan of going excessively low on either fats or carbohydrates. I believe fats are important for hormones and carbs are your muscle's primary energy source. So for me, I don't want my clients to look flat and scrawny. I want them to look muscular, and I don't want to look flat and scrawny. So I keep my diets with a pretty balanced macro split. So anywhere between 35 to 40% proteins, 30 to 35-ish% carbs, and the rest as fats as a good like baseline starting point. Okay. And then your micronutrients, which are your vitamins and your minerals that your body needs to thrive, should come from your food selections. Technically, you could drop a lot of fat eating nothing but McDonald's and junk food as long as you were still in a calorie deficit, but you'd feel like garbage and you probably would be starving all the time, so it would be torturous, right? And for me personally, I also believe if you're lacking the vitamins and the minerals in your diet that your body needs, you will have insane cravings that cause massive binges that you like. It's like having a void that you cannot fill because your body's craving something that your body needs and you're feeding it garbage. And I believe that's a massive contributing factor to binges. So the next priority is going to be meal timing. And I place this further up the list of priorities because timing your nutrition around your workouts, spacing your meals out evenly throughout the day, and anything related to meal timing is important and it's going to have a positive impact. But it's pointless to even think about it if you don't have your calories and your protein allocated properly at minimum. Research has been showing that your body uses the nutrition that you consume pretty efficiently, regardless of how many times per day you eat and how large the serving sizes are. But I'm still a big fan of eating 4 to 6 meals per day because I believe it improves adherence. So, like, for example, there used to be this myth about like you can only use 30 grams of protein per serving. But if you eat more than that, what they're finding now is that you still use it, but it just takes longer to digest it because it takes longer to go through your digestive system. So you still use those nutrients as an example. But me personally, I still am a big fan of eating 4 to 6 meals per day because I believe it improves adherence, right? We've all been in a situation where we've starved ourselves all day, and then by the time we get home, we are absolutely ravenous and we just make shitty decisions, right? So, although the research indicates it doesn't matter, it kind of does, in my opinion. But we're going to talk about what works best for you further in the episode. So, anyways, without getting too off track, your next important priority is going to be supplements. And like I said earlier, these should literally be the least of your priorities, except they've been marketed so well that most people think of them first. How many times have you seen a post on your Facebook page of a friend who's all hyped up and they're going to the gym and they do a Facebook post that's like, what protein powder should I take? Right. And if you've seen that post once, it's one time too many. I've seen it tons of times and I've seen it too many times, right? Because like supplements shouldn't be a priority. They should be used to leverage compliance of the other priorities, right? Does that make sense? Supplements are a factor, but really, I shouldn't even be listing them as a priority because they should just be used to leverage the other priorities compliance. Okay. And the last priority is absolutely crucial. I've already mentioned it a couple of times while talking about some of the previous priorities, and it's compliance. And I would probably say, next to overall calories per day, it's of the utmost importance. But the previous priorities that I mentioned, they kind of need to be mentioned because you need to go through that list of those priorities with compliance in mind. Okay. So after setting your calories, every decision that you make surrounding the remaining priorities after calories need to be done with compliance in mind. So, for example, I believe in a perfect world, you should have a pretty balanced macro split and you should eat frequently throughout the day. But if you try that and it's not working because you're still eating garbage snacks between meals or you still binge out at nighttime, then maybe intermittent fasting is better for you because it's the only way to stop you from eating like an asshole, and creating a hard and fast rule of a feeding window, of an eating window, will stop that behavior. So I believe what's best, but then in that situation, maybe intermittent fasting is a better idea, right? And then maybe you just can't control yourself with carbs. So even though I think that the best way to eat is a balanced approach, if you can't stop stuffing your face with peanut butter sandwiches at night, bagels and cream cheese, or donuts in the lunchroom, then maybe keto is a better diet for you because it's just like, no, I will not eat those things that I can't control myself with that hinder my success with my calories, right? Um Another example of this rule, or sorry, pardon me, another example is this like rule that you hear about of not eating anything after dinner. For some people, that's a great idea for the same reason as using intermittent fasting. Like if you habitually graze all night on garbage and then you put a rule in place of no food after 8 p.m. and you have the willpower to stick to that rule, then you'll keep your calories better in check and you'll have more success. But I do the complete opposite of that. I literally eat a massive snack or my last meal of the day within 30 minutes of going to bed. Why? Because I'm 1,000, 1,000,000% going to eat something anyways at that time of night. So I don't work against my tendencies. I work with my tendencies. And if I were to eat all my calories before 8 p.m., I'm going to eat extra calories after 8 p.m. and I'll blow my diet. So instead, I save some calories for after 8 p.m., right? And then it's the same thing with supplements. You shouldn't build out your diet thinking about your supplements. You should build out your diet thinking about calories, macros, and micros and meal timing. And then only include things like protein bars, shakes, and whatnot, or whatever, if it means they increase the likelihood of your adherence. Okay. But out of 50 clients that I work with at a time, I bet less than 10% of them need to leverage supplements for compliance. And honestly, it's probably way less than 10% of them. So, if you're a truck driver who's going to be stuck on the highway all day or a construction worker who's working on a remote site, then I might give you a protein bar. But if you work in an office and you get breaks in the morning, afternoon, and lunch, you can probably eat more hot foods and don't need to leverage supplements at all, right? So that's it. Like those are your priorities of building out a diet for a big transformation. That's what goes into making a good transformation diet. Calories are king, and compliance is the science. Everything else matters, but never at the cost of sacrificing your caloric intake or the likelihood of compliance. Okay. If you found this extremely useful and you want help building out your diet, you want it done for you, take all the guesswork approach out of things, message me the word coaching on my Facebook profile at Tom Trainer or on Instagram at Tom the Trainer Fitness. And we'll see if you're a good fit and if we're a good fit and I can help. And otherwise, have the best day ever. Take care.